G'day and welcome to the channel. In today's video, I'm out in the field, as you can see behind me. I'm really excited to try out a new lens today. What lens is that? Well, it's the Tamron 150-600. I get asked all the time about this lens and the Sigma, and are they any good for wildlife photography? I've never used this lens before or any of the zooms, so I'm really excited to put it through its paces and just see what sort of shots we can get. I did reach out to both Sigma and Tamron. Unfortunately, Sigma were unable to assist me, but Tamron were more than happy to send me this lens to try out. I'll do a video later on reviewing the lens. Today is just about taking some photos and seeing what sort of shots we can get. I'm going to use my Canon R6 mirrorless body with this, and I'm going to be shooting some ducks and some grebes, and I can see some swans. So there's a fair bit of water birds on this lake here. So if you saw my last two videos, I talked all about image quality and reducing soft shots. So I'm going to try and practice what I preach. I want to quickly talk about how I'm going to get the best image quality. Well, as you can see, there's no wind at all, so the water is completely flat. And that's by no mistake. I've actually waited 7 days to get these conditions. So I've been checking the weather, and today there's no clouds, no wind, so that's perfect waterbird territory. So I'm going to have good light and we're going to have good reflections, hopefully. We have got a bit of mist on the water, which is quite cool. So what else we're going to do? We're going to have birds that are reasonably tame. So a lot of these birds, this is a sort of a lake in the middle of a town. So a lot of these birds are used to people, so we shouldn't have too much trouble getting close to them. Now I'm going to get really low, because getting low helps create that intimate angle when you're shooting water birds. And the other thing I'm conscious of is where the sun's coming from. So the sun's actually coming from over this way, and I want it coming over my shoulder and pointing my shadow towards the bird. That way we're going to get light lighting up the birds, and that'll be our best angle. So I've found this little spot, so any birds that sort of go in front of us here, we should be able to get some nice shots. So it's just a matter of laying and waiting and hoping the birds come into our field of view, and that's the plan. I've got my trusty ground pod, which I get asked about nearly every time I use this. I'll put a link in the description below of where I get it. Very expensive for what it is, and you can use frying pans and other things. So on this, I'm going to mount my gimbal, and then on the gimbal, I'll put my lens and my camera, and then I'll get down low, lay on the ground, and photograph the birds. So that's pretty much what I'm going to be doing, so I might as well get set up and get into it. All right, so I'm laying down at the water's edge. I've got the lens zoomed out to 600, so it's pretty easy. You just turn this to go. So 600 is our maximum focal distance. We don't quite have the sunlight on the water yet. You can only oh, there's a grebe right in front of us. Okay, so we've got this grebe in this sort of reddy weeds in front of me, and we're just starting to get the light, and it's starting to look really nice. Okay, so we've got these swans over in the distance, and they're getting some sort of sunlight hitting them. It looks really nice. Sorry, I'm all over the place because I'm trying to talk to you, but there's just too much going on. So that's what we're dealing with at the moment. We've got the sunlight just coming up on these swans. Oh wow, this swan is amazing. All right, so that was a bit hectic there. We had the swans in this beautiful light with the fog on the water. What a beautiful scene. I don't know how the shot's going to look. I took a few, because often fog can interfere with the image quality. But yeah, what a beautiful morning. So for my exposure for those swans, I knew I didn't have a lot of light, so I actually went to ISO 6400, which is quite high. And I'm shooting at an aperture of f8, which is probably, for this lens, the max aperture on this lens is 6.3. We should be shooting at f9, f10, but I just don't have enough light. So I've chosen f8, and that sort of gave me a shutter speed above that 1/800th, is what I need for the moving birds. We've got some swallows dancing out here on the water. I'm just going to try the auto IAF and see if it picks up these swallows or not. We've got a coot here. hopefully it'll come out into the light. I have to admit I'm absolutely in my element here. There's birds, there's light. It's really, really cool. Whether any of these shots turn out because of the fog, I don't know, but it makes for a beautiful scene. You can see how the sun is now lighting up the water. What we want is a bird in the sunlight. That would be ideal. So I'm just laying here and waiting. That's probably the best strategy. Oh, what's that? Is that a turtle? So the Australasian grebes, they dive under the water and then they pop up. There it is. So hopefully it'll pop up somewhere where... Just noticed some birds are a little bit backlit over here, so I might try and quickly photograph them. I'll show you. All right. Let's see what we can do with these backlit birds. We can get one of them to come towards us into the light. Oh wow, this is pretty cool. Right, well that was pretty cool. So we've got the sun coming and it's sort of lighting up the water with the mist. So I've just tried to capture some of the birds in the mist. I don't know how successful it was, but it was worth a go. So that was pretty cool. All right, so we've got some birds in the light back on this side. So I'm going to switch back around and move back, shooting that way. I have to admit I'm often not that good at doing these creative shots sort of into the light and that sort of thing, so it's nice to try it. Even if it doesn't work out, it's good to try these things. Alright, so I've got this swan that's coming towards me, but I'm not a big fan of that big rock. So this is a really good example of the background when you're taking a photo. The bird on the left is not quite as good because we've got this massive rock, but this bird's looking much better. What a beautiful bird. Got two little grebes in front of us. So we can see that the autofocus, auto eye is actually working pretty well on this Coot. So it does work, it's just a little bit inconsistent at times. See, it's now grabbing it's lost it. You can see it can't seem to pick it up. So it can't seem to find it, it's just hunting, so I've got to put the focus point back on and then it'll pick up the eye. So that's what happens when you put your elbows and your knees in the mud. It's a beautiful spot. It's hard to beat coming down to the local lake and spending the morning with the birds. It's definitely my happy place, that's for sure. All right, that brings my session to an end. The sun's getting pretty high now. I took loads of photos. I hope I got some really nice shots. I hope you've seen those shots and you've enjoyed them. Let me know in the comments which one you like the best. What did I think of the lens on my very first outing with it? Look, I enjoyed the zoom. So I've never really used zooms before, and it is a great advantage to be able to sort of change your composition on the fly. So a couple of times the bird got a little bit close, so I made it wider to fit in two birds. But that's one big advantage of this lens for sure. 600mm is a nice focal length that, you know, it gets you quite close. So how did I find the actual shooting experience? The autofocus wasn't too bad. The auto IAF of the R6 works much better on the Canon bodies. It does work with this lens, and if there's no distractions it will go onto the eye, but I found it missing the bird quite a bit today and getting distracted by reeds and weeds in the back of the bird. So I ended up using the standard AF a lot more than I probably do on my Canon lenses. I don't know if that's a third-party issue, whether this lens just doesn't talk that well to that camera, I'm not sure. In saying that, the traditional AF definitely worked. I didn't really have too many issues getting focus. We'll check the photos later to see how sharp they are. You know, I made sure I shot at f11 or f10 to try and increase the sharpness of this lens. I was happy to see that this lens actually gets the full 12 frames per second on the Canon EOS R6, so that was a bit of a surprise. I didn't think you'd get the full 12 frames per second, but you do, so that's a bonus. But overall, a fantastic morning. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Of course, subscribe if you want to see more of these videos, and yeah, just leave the comments below. I really do like reading those comments. Thanks to the members that support the channel directly. It does make a difference and it helps me to continue making these videos. So I had a lot of fun. Thanks again. Until the next one. See you later. So that's the lens I'll be using today. Lots of parrots flying around. Okay, so what were my initial impressions? What are my initial impressions? So what are my initial impressions of this lens?